Coach, first congratulations on the record there. Just how did you celebrate after the fact?
Zero. We celebrated our semifinal win and then went on. It's been really kept low-keyed, and I wanted it that way. I started saying it happened at a bad time. Of course, I don't guess it happens at a bad time, but we're in the semifinals. We're in the finals of the state championship, so the attention needs to be on the kids in our program, and that's where it's been. And I'm proud of our whatever. It's just been a low-key thing right now.
I've talked to one of the media members. They said, hey, they kept it kind of quiet because you kind of wanted. You guys didn't make a big deal of it going into it. I mean, yeah, it was maybe a stat in the paper, but really that was about where it was left at.
It was zero made big. I mean, it was just another game for our program. That's about what it was.
After the weekend, is that when you kind of can sit back and reflect about it?
I haven't really sit back and reflected at all. I don't. I might after this week maybe, but it's not. It's just whatever it is. I'm planning on coaching another 6 or 7, 8 years, and hope that we can continue to have good programs and good teams and make runs at the championship.
I'm sure your kids knew the record was coming up and everything. How did you say?
Yeah,
hey,
but
keep it on
they
them?
didn't say much. I'm sure they knew it. I don't think they cared much about it, and quite frankly, I don't know who cared about it much. It's been very, very low key, and that's sort of the way I want it, and I think that's the way it's been.
As a kid growing up in Carthage, you thought, hey, I want to try this football coaching thing. Did you ever think that this day would come? I mean, was that ever even thought of?
No. I mean, first year I coached, we were 0-10. I was thinking more about how much longer can I last, doing this. So didn't have any idea that it would turn into this. And, I ask why me sometime because there's so many. I've got coaches on my staff that are better coaches than I am in just about every school I've been. So I've been very, very lucky somehow and fortunate.
Mr. Watson gave you the opportunity to come to Riverdale years ago, and that everything springboarded from there.
No doubt.
Let's talk about that opportunity you're given, and I mean,
he didn't know me and I didn't know him, and I guess he had talked to, I think Jimmy Earl, the ex-AD at MTSU, had seen our Carthage team play for some reason and mentioned my name to Mr. Watson, and I had taken a program that was really, really, really poor, and we had turned it around pretty good. So that's what got it started, and Mr. Watson's a key figure in all this. He hired me. Not only did he hire me, he gave me the freedom to do whatever we need to do legally and within line to try to build a great football program at Riverdale. And we did that, and he was certainly the backbone of that when it all started. I mean, he allowed me to do what I thought I needed to do as far as getting coaches and getting them in the building and doing the things that we needed to do. So there's no doubt I wouldn't be standing here right now if it wasn't for Hewlett Watson. There's no doubt.
And memory serves me right, that whole conversation took place at a Shoney's because the power was out.
Power was out. There had been a car wreck down on front of Warrior Drive somewhere, and it knocked the power out. And the interview actually literally happened at Shoney's in one of those 2-seat booths. And I can still remember the conversation. I can remember the day, and it was in Shoney's right there. I thought Riverdale had a chance to be pretty good. I had no idea it had a chance to take off like it did, even though Jimmy Maynard, the guy that I brought with me, who was a head coach at Cookeville now, been the head coach at Smith County and one of the better coaches in the state, conferred with me because he was coaching at White County at that time, and he had said, Riverdale's got athletes, and if you go over there, you can really do well. So I sort of rode on his recommendation too about what he said, because I really didn't know anything about Riverdale at that time. But it was a move that I made, and it was one of the best moves I've ever made, no doubt.
And I think we spoke about this before, but what you did at Riverdale kind of made Rutherford County football what it is today, because it forced everybody to kind of pick up their game, pick up their programs.
I think it did. I think we made Everett School in Rutherford County better, and they had to if they were going to compete. And I think there's a baseball coach or two in Rutherford County did the same thing. Mm-hmm. They picked their programs up with facilities and wins and state championships, and so I hope that was it. I hope that was part of the reason, but I really feel like that propelled a lot of schools in Rutherford County.
Everyone talks about the coaches you confer with, talk to. When you were in the business, when you were first getting started, who did you talk to, and who do you talk to now?
Well, when I first got into it, I looked up to the guys that was on top, and that was Calvin Short at Galton. He had probably the best public school program, big program. around, and I talked to him, Carlton Flatt at Redwood Academy. I certainly talked to him from time to time. So, and I went to the people. I want to talk to Rick Insel one time. I want to see the guys that were winning. It didn't really make any difference to me what sport it was, but the guys that were really winning year in and year out. And, that's what I tried to study a little bit and focus on, and it really helped me.
Who do you talk to now if you're doubting yourself or something? Who do you talk to now?
Well, I still got my circle of friends. Jimmy Maynard's one of my closest friends. Ron Crawford, the head coach at Cleveland, and I still got some of those guys that I confer with. Greg Wine, a lot of guys. I'm usually the guy sitting on the front row at these coaching clinics, just trying to learn every day and get better. So there's certainly a lot of guys out there that have helped me with different things.
I think you said you see yourself coaching another 6 to 8 years.
I'm planning on it. Yeah.
What this team right here you got now? I mean, let's talk about what you guys have
We've overachieved a little bit. Probably we're beat up right now. This is the most beat up we've probably come into a state championship game. Got a great group of kids. We've played hard during the year. We've not been as consistent at times as I'd like to be with different things, but all teams are different. And, our semifinal game was against a great Notre Dame team who was good enough to win it all. Notre Dame was good enough to beat Alcoa. They were good enough to beat CPA. We just had a better night. They had some turnovers, but they were certainly a team that was capable with athletes and coaching to win the state championship. So we're probably going to play the two hardest games we've played since I've been at Alcoa back to back.
When we talk about coaches of how they evolve over the years and change, have you pretty much stayed the same with scheme-wise what you've done throughout the years?
I've stayed the same scheme-wise for the most part. You got to change with the times a little bit, but your fundamentals don't change, your fundamental beliefs don't change. Kids change, and I understand that, and I've changed to a certain degree, but the basic things that make you successful, make you win,
You're still going to run the football.
They're no different than what they were 25 years ago. And I'm just not talking about just running the football, but our kids are going to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and they're going to behave in school, and they're going to do what they're supposed to do. You're not going to see them throw a helmet on the sideline. You're not going to see them get a 15-yard penalty for the most part. So we're pretty demanding on our teams and on our kids, and I'm doing those kind of things, the same way I did it 20, 25 years ago.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Congratulations, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Good to see you. Thank you. Thanks.
Coach, can you just talk about Gary Rankin's achievement becoming the winningest coach? I mean, I know you coached under him under a lot of years. He's still kind of a mentor to you. Just talk about your thoughts on that.
I mean, I'm extremely proud for him. I mean, obviously he gave me my first job. More than that, he's probably one of the biggest mentors in my life. He's a great man. A lot of people don't know him. I think part of that's because he's shy and kind of disconnected socially from a lot of people. But he's a strong Christian, great father, great role model for me. I think he's very well deserved of obviously the achievement, and just proud for him.
He's a guy. He's kept to his what works for him. He's stayed throughout the years. You haven't seen him change offenses and stuff. He's still the same. And he said, even that beyond that, the other fundamentals of this, hey, we're not going to make 15-yard penalties. We're going to, or very many of them. We're going to, do things the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. I think you look at Gary, and he's got a way that he goes about doing things, and he's not going to, he's going to stick with his plan, and his plan has been the same for the last 25, 30 years. I mean, you look at other coaches, and they can change and evolve and do different things. That's not to say that one's better than the other. Gary's stuck with what works, and I think he'd be the first to tell you he's, been at places where he felt like he could have success. I mean, he's taken jobs that he felt like, when he took the Riverdale job, he felt like it was a place that he could make into what he made it into. And then obviously Alcoa was a great place. He just, I think, made it even better. But a lot of it's styles and fits, and he was a great fit at Riverdale in that run, and he's been a great fit at Alcoa. And like I said, the way he does things, I think, his success speaks for itself.
What's your best Gary Rankin story that you can say publicly?
Best Gary Rankin story? There's a bunch of them. I would have to say probably the best was my first year. Was a rough year. Most people would not make it through the first year that I had with Gary Rankin. I was the secondary coach. He didn't want to hire me because I was straight out of college. He adamantly told me he wasn't going to hire me. I had to beg him to come interview. And I think two stories. One would be in the spring we scrimmaged Father Ryan my first month. And my dad was with us after the game, and my dad had just met Coach Rankin for the first time. And Coach Rankin looked at my dad and said, "Can you fire somebody before you even hire them?" And I think the secondary played so bad in that first scrimmage that he was joking with my dad that he was going to go ahead and get rid of me. And then that summer we were in a passing league, and I think we lost on the last play of a game against maybe Austin East, and he threw his sunglasses down and broke them, and put them back on. They were all crooked, but weren't on his face straight, and he's looking at me screaming, and I was like, what have I got myself into? So that's just one of many. I've taken many a butt chewing from him, but it's made me who I am now, and I know for a fact I would not have the opportunities and success I've had if it wouldn't been under the leadership of Coach Rankin.
What was your first year there? What year?
2001.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Coach Shane Owens, let's talk about. I know you had a lot of games with Gary while you were at Smyrna. Let's talk about what it means to see him break that record.
Very deserving. Gary was always really quiet. Nobody really got to know Gary, but I got to know him on a different level because he was also my neighbor. For years, last 10 years, he lived right down the street, so he would stop by occasionally. Class guy, tried to do things the right way. His teams were always prepared, and everybody, when he was here in Murfreesboro, used to talk about, well, they're so much better than everybody else, and they were. But he always did a great job of preparation, and his teams never played poorly. Wasn't always at the top of their games, but always played well. So very deserving, class guy, did things the right way, still does things the right way, and so it doesn't surprise me he's breaking that record.
When he came into Riverdale and kind of built them up, it kind of, I think, forced all the other programs to really step up their game to get to that level to compete with them. Let's talk about how that, we talk about how great this county is in football. A lot of it has to do, I think, with him just because he forced everyone to raise up another level.
Sure. There was a time in which most of the year in, year out, they were way better than all the competition around. It wasn't close at times. And so I think it brought everybody's game. I know when I got to Smyrna, the first thing we tried to do was, as a 4A school back then, was to try to schedule Riverdale because I wanted our kids to understand at Smyrna that if you wanted to be really, really good, then you had to compete against great competition. So that and the building of all the schools, I think, watered down maybe for a little bit, but now I think our county's arrived back to a stage where it's very competitive at numerous schools, and a lot of that is to do with what Gary did back in the 90s.
What's your favorite Gary Rankin story?
Well, I about shot him one night when he if I'd have had a gun by my chair, he sitting at home, and Gary would stop by. Well, I didn't realize he was going to come in the door at 7 o'clock at night without knocking, and somebody comes busting in. I hear this guy's voice, "Hey, anybody home?" And so I jumped up out of the chair thinking I'm fixing to either have to fight somebody or try to shoot someone. And it was Gary walking in the door, and that's the kind of guy he was. That's probably the funniest story. I don't have too many good football stories because he beat us so many times when I was at Smyrna, but maybe the best story that was football related was the year after he left is the year that Smyrna beat Riverdale in the quarterfinal game, 9-7. And back then we had answering machines, and I had probably 40 messages at least. My wife was deleting them all, and she saved one, and she said, "You got to hear this one." And I said it was probably 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was Gary, and I didn't recognize the voice at the beginning. He said, "Congratulations, boy! I sure am glad you waited till I left Riverdale before you did that." And it was Gary congratulating us on the win in the quarterfinals, knowing how important that was to Smyrna and how important that was to us. But that was probably one of the nicest things he ever did, but also probably one of the neatest things.